guys, and welcome to another episode. Today, I am joined by Mr. Douglas Horn from Good Block, otherwise known as the white paper author of Telos. I'm glad to have you on the show again, my friend. There's been so much happening since the last time.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I'm really glad to be here. Thanks. I'm glad, we were just talking and it's like, yeah, wow, we really should catch up because a lot has changed. I don't even know when the last one was, but when we were like, the last one was kind of all about what even is Telos. And I have a feeling like now we're going to be like drilling down and going, okay, what are you going to do about this? And what are you going to do about that? Because I think a lot of people now are becoming aware of us, I think, which is fun.
Yeah, it's I don't even think it was that long ago, to be honest, Douglas. I think it was like maybe 2 months ago since the last time we talked, but just time in the space just flies. It's just hyper speed, every day is 6.
Every day is 1,000 years and 4 milliseconds,
That's what it feels like. I guess kind of like before we dig into all this stuff, do you want to just give, for anybody who doesn't know what Telos is, I think you're right when you say a lot of people are becoming aware of what you're doing, but just by some weird chance, somebody's been maybe just getting into the space or whatever else. What is kind of Telos?
Sure. Yeah, they were back on Ethereum and they're just getting in. So Telos is a new blockchain that's going to launch in days or weeks. That is a fork of the EOS software, open source software, in the same way as EOS is a fork of the EOS software, and as Warbly will be a fork of the EOS software. So it's people call it a sister chain. It's its own chain. It's not a side chain. It's not really connected, but it is very similar in many ways because it's run by people who are very interested in the EOS verse and the EOS world, and where many of us were took part in that launch. So we're driven by those same core initial values that I think we all saw in EOS, and it's an approach to say, let's learn from what happened with the early days of EOS and see if we can do get a little do-over, right? And maybe do a couple things differently. And so some of those things it does differently is launching with every part that was promised of EOS, such as the arbitration and the ability to ratify and amend and the ability to have working proposals and things like that right off the bat, like not launch without it. And it changes the tokenomics in one simple way, which is we cap we take the EOS snapshot, and if you had 20 EOS, you will on the Genesis snapshot you will have 20 Telos, and if you had 5,000, you will have 5,000. But after 40,000, that changes, and we cap at 40,000. So what that does is it affects just under 1,100 accounts. Yeah. And that changes the tokenomics greatly, so that our goal was to make sure everybody has a chance to vote. So that's what it is. It's a new version of EOS. It's its own distinct chain, but it's got some real differences in the governance, in the working mechanics, like just the network security, some things like the ability to remove instantly block producers who aren't doing the job in favor of somebody new who can, and the ability to test all the standbys to make sure that each and every one of them is always ready to step in as needed, and therefore you need less. And by having fewer, you can actually fix the pay for everybody so it's equal. So all the active BPs get one rate and the same rate as each other, and all the standby BPs who are also rotating in on a regular basis to prove their capacity get half that rate. So things like that, so you don't get this runaway effect where some BPs get so far ahead that as the others fall behind, that they become entrenched, and there's no way that they'll ever really be changed because they can get all the firepower they need through those rewards to just outpace everybody else. So trying to fix things like that, little things. None of them really are a chain killer for EOS, but each one has its importance. Most particularly voting, right? Because when we change the tokenomics, it means that everyone suddenly has a voice and a vote that is consequential, right? in a very small percentage, but in basically an equal, bell curve sort of distribution, as opposed to something over here where unless you're one of 100 or more like 50 accounts, your vote really doesn't matter. And when people's votes don't matter, they become disengaged and disenfranchised, and they don't vote. And then a system that's entirely based on voting, is at risk of breaking down. Anyway, that's what Telos is.
Sure. Am I kind of hitting the nail on the head when I say that's also your intention to make it a little bit more affordable for developers to be able to develop on it?
No, I would like it to be unaffordable. I would like the token price to be so high that no one can afford to. But the reality is, at least for the foreseeable future, Telos tokens are going to be less money than EOS tokens. I think that's impossible, that won't happen. And each Telos token, because of our lower token supply, because there's about a third as many Telos as there are EOS, almost exactly, or very close, that means that each Telos token has 3 times the system resource purchase power of an EOS token. So you add the fact that the tokens are going to be, lower, and at the very start, significantly lower, right? Because nobody heard of us, and only will come up to a closer parity when people realize the power of the network is the same as EOS. So the price is going to be lower for each token, each Telos token compared to an EOS token, and each Telos token is going to have 3 times the resources. So for developers, it's going to be far, far more affordable to deploy on Telos than EOS, just simply based on token price. And then on top of that, we have these initiatives like some RAM grants and resource grants that are aimed at making it even more affordable. And what that suddenly does, especially with the grants, and I would love to talk about those soon, what that does is it means that people in parts of the world who may, due to their economics, really have no option, no ability, they couldn't conceive of getting onto EOS. We suddenly create a sandbox in Telos where it truly is anyone can get on. It's a huge, these grants and things are supposed to be a big on-ramp for everybody, particularly in parts of the world that no one's even actually realistically discussing getting onto EOS. So that's our hope.
Yeah.
Cheaper development means more dApps, which is really what the whole game is about. Whoever gets the dApps, if EOCO, EOS and Telos and whoever else can capture the dApps, then they capture then they win the platform race. That is what we're trying to do. And so we're trying to provide another approach to do that. And we don't have the resources that Block One has to bring in VC and go high, right, and get and headhunt these like most exciting ones. But I think we believe that there's probably a lot of amazing, innovative ones down here that if we can remove the impediment to being able to afford to get on it, so all they have to figure out is how to create a great dApp. I actually think if you cherry picking 20 awesome dApps that look awesome from day one versus empowering 500 dApps that who knows what they'll do, I personally believe you will get way more awesome dApps this way out of the 500. Even if it's even if it's just one, even if it's just 10%, you're gonna have 50. You're gonna have 50 great dApps instead of 20. So that's our approach.
It's been busy for the last little while, I know, with you, and I'm sure the last couple of weeks have been hectic. I know that the next couple of weeks are going to be hectic, but can you kind of talk a little bit about some of the latest developments leading into the launch? And of course, what's the launch going to look like? What's the sort of tentative timeline? And what are maybe some barriers?
Well, those are great questions, Matt. So my hope is that the launch is going to be boring. Really, really boring. Like if a movie is boring, that's bad. If a blockchain, if it's dynamic and exciting and you never know what's going to happen next, and oh my God, and I was on the edge of my seat, and how do they, what's going to happen? How are they going to survive? That's great for a movie, right? Movies were once my business. That's not good at all for a blockchain.
Yeah.
That is not what you want. What you want is boring. You want to say, here's what we're going to do, and then you do it. And here's what the process is, and then you do that process. And here's what we think RAM is going to cost, and then it does. It's boring, but it's great, right? I mean, ultimately, the sooner we can stop talking, I mean, like, I'm probably going to be involved with Telos the rest of my professional life.
Yeah.
But I look forward to people not really talking about Telos, right? Like, as an afterthought. In the same way we don't really talk about the World Wide Web. Like, when was the last time you talked about that? You're using it right now, every day. And back in, 90 something, we talked, 89 or whatever, we talked about the World Wide Web all the time. It's all people talked about, right? No, we don't talk about it at all, because and we have this. I mean, we talk about Facebook, and we talk about Twitter, and we talk about all these other things that are, and Amazon, and we talk about all these applications that are built on top of it. Never talk about the World Wide Web. This is the first time other than I've had this conversation example, but other than using this example, I hadn't talked about the World Wide Web in 10 years. I bet you probably haven't, either, right? Nobody does. No. That's what I want Telos to be. I want, when nobody talks about us anymore and just goes, yeah, that's a thing. I know about that. Oh yeah, we got those, oh, I love those dApps on there, right? Then we will have reached our goal and we will win, right? Yeah. We want to be boring. And so our launch is going to be boring. We've ensured it's going to be boring because we have this launch checklist. Instead of, the EOS launch was actually really exciting, right? And I remember people voting no, and everyone's like a few of us voting no on a certain launch date, and people were like calling, why are you voting no? And and all these things. And because all they really had, unfortunately, was a standard, and I say they, and I mean we, I am as much at fault there. All we had as a standard was a date. Can we launch? Yes. Right. So, and what we realized in Telos after that was you need a much bigger standard, right? Like a NASA launch, everyone thinks about the countdown, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but they, unless you watched, Apollo 13 a lot or something like that, you don't remember that there's this whole checklist before you even get to that countdown, right? Like life support, weather, orbit, fuel system, oxygen. All those things, they're going down all those things, and they're saying, oh, are all of these things a go? And if they're not a go, they scrub it before they ever get to the countdown, right? Yeah. So we said, hey, let's do that, right? We have these things, first of all, that we've promised, and we've promised them because we think that they're super important to the chain to function properly, right? And so let's keep our promises, and let's really put it out front there, and let's put a checklist on our website and with the status of everything. Like you might pull it up in editing. There's empty circles, and there's filled in yellow circles, like amber circles, and there's green check marks when they're ready. And it's going to be boring, and all the votes so far have been boring, or both the votes so far have been boring, because we said unless they're all green, we're not going to go. And so we look at the thing. The first thing we do, hey everybody, great to see you. Let's look at the launch chart, and they're not all green, and that's it. And then we talk about what when it would be a reasonable time to meet again if they're likely to be green. And as much as I'm telling you, Matt, I want to launch this thing because we could, right? We could totally launch. We could, in many ways, totally launch right now. I mean, our testnet stage 0 of our testnet launched 1 month or less after EOS launched. So our all stages together have about 18 million blocks pushed, right? Just our current one, we're about to shut it down. It has over 10 million blocks pushed, and 100 and just shy 149 million and change transactions. So it's not like those are empty blocks. We've been pushing stuff. We've done 30 full launch rehearsals, right? And some of them were really bad, but they're getting pretty good now, right? So we know exactly what our RAM's going to cost. We know we're just testing things out now. We could go right now, but we would be breaking that promise, and that would be drama, and that would be, but we want to be boring. We want to be boring. So we will vote again on Halloween, and if they are all green, we will launch. If they're not all green, we will vote. We will discuss when we should meet again. it will be, I mean, I expect that there will be at most 1 or 2 that are not green.
Yeah.
So, and it's also possible that we'll say, hey guys, we're so close, maybe we could pick a day, you know, a couple that, or maybe we just have another launch, another vote, but it's not, it won't be 2 weeks away. Maybe we'll move to 1 week, or maybe we'll move to a fixed number of days, and have another vote. So until we get them all green, though, it's not yes. And then once it is all green, we vote yes. And then there's a process which we have our paper, we have it ready internally. More boredom, more boringness. We're going to push this paper out, and our launch checklist, then what's added to that is an activation checklist. And we just go through all the pieces, updating them, daily or hourly. And as we go down through this process, and anyone can look at exactly where we are. We have six AVPs that are publicly known. All this is in the white paper. Again, more boringness from us. We're doing essentially what it says in the white paper, and we're saying there's 6 public AVPs. They are known. They will launch it according to the launch system that's documented. And then they launch, they inject, they validate all the snapshot addresses, just like EOS. And when I say they, actually anyone can do it. We'll have all our snapshots available, and all the validation tools, and anyone can run those. And totally boring stuff by design.
Okay.
Right? And then it'll launch, and then at 1 million blocks. So then it comes up. We have since there's no reason to do 15% voting, right? Because there's no chance of competing chains like there was on EOS. So we just said we'd say once we pause it for injecting all these things, and then at block 1 million, it goes live. And assuming there haven't been any problems, if somebody comes forward and says, hey, this snapshot, this validation's not going, then we tear it down and fix it or start again or whatever. I don't think there's likely to be false starts, but if they are, that's not really the end of the world. What matters is the chain that is made and goes live, and that everyone feels comfort with them. So yeah, and in the meantime, we have more chances to do really important things like tell everybody whose keys got lost or stolen on EOS from the Genesis that they can change those on Telos. That's really where I spend probably half my time these days, trying to figure out ways, and just like getting on Telegram and telling people. We have had the ECAF, the EOS Core Arbitration Forum, was kind enough, because they have a list of all the people who've contacted them about this. They were kind enough to send out an email to everybody on that list, telling them the instructions how to do this. And I believe EMAC, the Chinese version of that as well, is also reaching out to people. So we're trying to get all the outreach we can. And in the meantime, there's little things that we can fix, and big things that we're working on. That's how the launch is going to go. It's going to go boring, and I will be the happiest person in the world to have a super boring launch.
Sounds good. I get it. So the obstacles, hopefully nothing. Just going over systematic checks and launching.
There will be obstacles, I think. I mean, it's different. It's different when you've done 30 launch rehearsals, right? You have a pretty good idea what they are, right? By number 15, you're starting to starting to figure it out, and after 15 more, you pretty much have it down, right? And you can dial stuff in. That's our intention, right? We have to, we're the upstarts, we're whatever. We have to be better. And we should be better, because we got to stand on the shoulders of the giants who launched EOS, and so we have no excuse not to have a really, again, boring launch, right?
I want to circle back to one of the points that you kind of made previously, and that involved dApps. You don't want to be known as Telos. You just, oh yeah, there's some great applications on here. What are those applications? Like, what's currently in development that you're able to divulge right now, if you're able to divulge anything? Like, what kind of applications are we going to see on Telos? I know, of course, you've probably been speaking to a lot of developers. What does the landscape look like right now from what you're allowed to tell us?
Well, yeah, thanks, Matt. That is great. And it's also good that you understand, right? I mean, we're a platform, but these are dApps, And it's really up to them to say, so unless to issue their own publicity, we're not out to out anybody. I think frankly, I mean, we make dApps, and if I were an unaffiliated dApp developer, there's really not a lot of reason to show your hand before. I think that there are a lot of people who are watching intently from the sidelines and would like to see two things. I think they'd like to see several things, but I think we've shown most of them, right? So we had finalized our governance about a week and a half ago, and then we finalized it again this morning on a vote because there are some things that we realized that weren't there. But this is the final this time I mean it version of everything. And so that's kind of a big check mark for people, and they can kind of look at where they stand and weed through those because they're long and boring again. I think they're interested in, can we actually launch it without a hitch? Like we say, you know, are we full of it, or can we actually pull this off? Are we actually doing all these practices? They will, you know, boringly see that we can do what we're saying we're going to do. Sure. And then they're looking to see what the RAM price is going to do. I think this is what you know, many people are telling me, and we've also promised that RAM is going to be boring and that we're going to have a published guidance price, and that it probably won't get, you know, more than 10 to 15% out of that channel, because there are going to be like interactions, and for any budding RAM speculators, maybe we should do 2 minutes on why that's not a good idea in Telos, even though people make tons of money on EOS. Sure. But you know, so if we can manage those, and we have really great strategies around all those things, then it makes sense for them to come on. And until we do that, you know, them coming forward and saying, hey, we're going to be on Telos, you know, is a danger in case we screw it up. Yeah. So we're having great conversations with people. I think shortly after the launch and you know, the first hours really, when RAM starts stable and stays stable, I think you will see a lot of interest.
Yeah, I believe you probably will as well. We're going to peel it back a little bit. So everything goes well. It's nice and boring. You tick all the boxes. This thing is launched. People want to know, like, what's the process of going to claim their tokens? How do you kind of set up your Telos account? Where do you find the information on this?
Yeah, that's great, and I want people to know that. So it's actually going to be super easy. There's no sign up required, unlike, you know, it's not technically an airdrop. Telos isn't. If it were an airdrop, I think there's every indication that it would be the highest value airdrop on EOS by far. I don't think anything else is coming close to that, to what our people expect our price to be out of the gate. Although that's all conjecture. I think it'll turn out to be true. So please do go get your Telos, but you don't have to do anything. There's no sign up. There's no, I mean, we never did an ICO. Let's step back 1 second. We never raised any money. We never did an ICO. The 100+ member, and actually well over, I think it's in the 120 or so above, members of the Telos contributors group, many of whom have been working on this for about 4 months, right? Yeah. And so I think the median time is probably about 2.5 months. So that's a lot. We didn't raise any money. We're doing it on our own dime, and as a result, we didn't have to do any weird KYC stuff. We didn't have to do, we basically just picked a list. We could have picked any list and given, we picked a good list, and we're just giving out tokens. So, so there's no KYC, there's no sign up, you don't have to get on any list. All you have to do is get on a browser, get on a wallet that you like, right? That's multi-chain, and that will probably be at the launch Squirrel, which is our own version of EOS Voter from Greymouse. That Marlon Williams of EOS Miami is actually working very closely with them, and in a group hug sort of way, and to help extend their development team so that it can fit kind of our priorities. but then that code is actually going back to them, and so EOS Voter will be multi-chain very soon, is my understanding. And so you can use, but Squirrel also has some of the additional early voting features, so that you can actually submit a worker proposal if you would like to, or vote on a worker proposal, or vote for an arbitrator, since our arbitrators are elected as opposed to appointed as they are in EOS. You can vote. There's ratify amend that you can do through Squirrel. So Squirrel or Scatter Scatter initially supported us. They don't not support us. What happened was Nathan James had a big eureka moment that was amazing for Scatter, and it took his development in a certain direction, and that direction changed some of the things that the stuff he had built to make it multi-chain off the bat. And so now he's circling back towards that, and we've been working very closely with him, both Marlon Williams, who I mentioned, and Jesse Schulman at Kalios have been working with him to express what a multi-chain wallet is going to look like, right, and what it needs to be. Since we're really the first ones to interact with users, right, in a multi-chain way. There's a lot of solutions that need to be developed kind of for Telos, and then will apply to everyone else. And that's great. So we're working with them. So if you're a user, you're going to get into either the very latest version of Scatter, or the very latest version of Squirrel, and these will allow you to sign on to any chain you want, and you can just, from EOS, there'll be EOS mainnet, and you just drag down to Telos mainnet, and you get on, and you can use the tool the way you like it. If your EOS Genesis keys are already there in Scatter, for example, because you're using that already, or because you love Squirrel and you've been using that on one chain, or because Graymass is able to launch that on theirs in time, and you've been using that, right? If your keys are already in there and you haven't changed them since the Genesis, then it should be as easy as just going over to selecting the Telos mainnet, and you should sign in immediately. It's gonna be that easy, right? It is far harder for me to describe it than it would be to do it. It'd be like, bing, bing, done. Absolutely. Right? If you change your keys, which I would say anyone who's concerned and says, oh, one more scam, one more group trying to steal my keys or whatever with this janky, never heard of it wallet Squirrel, which by the way is not the case. It's open source. You can look at the source. It's from EOS Voter. It's the same. But this is crypto, right? So people think that in their heads, or say it aloud, or shout it on the internet. So if that's the case, you can go change your keys, right, on EOS, which everyone recommends as a good key hygiene practice anyway. Yeah. And then go ahead and enter them on Telos, and the worst that can happen is you lose your Telos. So we have to, or if you're somebody who's lost their keys or had your keys phished in the early days of EOS, then you can get on our site, telosfoundation.io/recovery, and it has two processes. There's actually three processes that you can do to go and have your keys changed before we launch. So we'll have a separate snapshot that reflects the keys that have been changed because somebody stole their key, and it's cryptographically secure. Basically, what people have to do is send us a message from the Ethereum account that owned them, a signed message or a zero Ether transaction that includes in the data the new key. Send that, convert it to hex. There's a process, pretty easy, step by step. So send that, and then we'll change those so that the true owners can benefit them, so that the scumballs who thieved people and fished them and took advantage of them on EOS don't get their Telos also, right? I mean, it makes me really angry, frankly. So if you're one of those, so if that's the case, then you've changed your keys. Then you will input your new keys. into these wallets, and then boom, it's a key entry process. Most people have done it once, and it's the same one. So then you're off and running, right? And hopefully there'll be dApps very soon. I think the first thing we'd like people to do is vote. Either vote, direct, look at the people who are on there, take your picks, or pick one of the early proxies that will be on there, and let them do the voting for you.
For sure. Yeah. No, it sounds good, man. I think another question that people are really asking and they want to know, and I also read a recent article which answers this, but I think it might be good coming from you. Is Telos going to be on any exchanges? Where are people going to be able to buy some if they wanted to pick up more, or if they wanted to increase their bag a little bit?
Yeah, right. Well, or if they want to sell them, right? Because it's their tokens. So True. If they want to sell them, I don't think that's a good decision. But nobody's asked my permission. So right now there are 2 confirmed. There are Dexios, and that's on the EOS chain, and so they have actually, and they were the first to come in. And thank you, Dexios. You guys are awesome. They worked super hard. And my understanding is it is up and running now and working on the test net. And some of us have tested it out, and it seems to be really working well. Because they're a DEX on EOS, they had to create sort of a bridge token that's like sort of, fake Telos on like EOS Telos, right? And that then when people can trade using the DEX, and then those can be, and then they have a simple transfer function so that those get destroyed and turned into real Telos. So Dexios is doing that. We're super psyched they're there, and that's going to be EOS Telos listing. And then chainrift.com is going to be listing another really progressive exchange that they're very new, but really showing how out in front they are. They are going to be listing Telos Bitcoin and Telos EOS. So, which is pretty cool to be able to trade against EOS, and that's pretty much a standard new, still smaller because they're new, but awesome exchange. Actually, an exchange, one of the very few exchanges based in the United States of America. So that's cool. So those 2 are confirmed, and I can talk about them. I can say that there are, I would not at all be surprised if we have more than that at actual launch, even if that's Wednesday, right? Yeah. So our exchange outreach group is working very hard, and not to do anything in advance, but again, not rushing anything, nice and boring, but going along a process to get these things done in an expedient way, and it's going really well. So there will be places. I mean, not Bitfinex, maybe never, right? Just because of the politics of there. Binance, probably someday, right? I think what's going to happen is, 1 month after Telos launches, it's going to be, one of the top 3 fastest blockchains in the world, and have probably, the top 10 most transactions of any blockchain. People are going to start paying, and some dApps are on it. People are going to start paying attention. So that's my hope, and then exchanges will want them. We will give, for anyone who had their EOS stuck on exchanges at the snapshot time, we are trying to work with exchanges to make sure that they can get their Telos that they own, and they should own. But we have to get the exchanges to actually agree to give that to them, and also to agree to cap it at 40,000 for those accounts too. So that's ongoing. I think it will go well. I think there's so many things in the crypto space that it's reasonable to say, hey, prove it, right? Show us that you're going to do all these things. So it doesn't really bother me, or I think any of us, that they're also just kind of like waiting to see if we're full of it or for real. So, for sure. But I do want to say something. We have something called, this is kind of important for people. We have something called the original snapshot. So if we just took an actual Genesis snapshot of Telos. For one thing, we've already providing all the CSV files of all the snapshots, so there would be no point in doing that. It'd be really easy for anyone to recreate and say, just following our process. That's right there. There's no reason to do that. And it's been pointed out to us by some people that doing that basically just perpetuates the the EOS snapshot. And that's great, but that's available, right? So what we thought, based on user comments, was from a lot of people who were like, hey, we really like this idea of Telos, we want to get in on it, but just because our coins were on Binance at the snapshot, or because we hadn't heard of it, or because for whatever reason we weren't on the EOS snapshot, now we're off the Telos snapshot too, and we said, you're right, actually that's not at all what Telos is about. Telos is about, come on, join us. And so we took those comments to heart, and we decided that 5 million blocks after activation, which will be block 6 million, yep, we will take, and that's 29 days. We will take a new snapshot. We're going to call it the original snapshot, and we're going to make that snapshot available to everyone. That's probably good timing for a lot of people who might want to be coming out with new dApps and want to do airdrops. And so we're going to provide that for free to anybody any dApps who would like to use it, including the RAM storage, so they don't have to pay for the RAM. And so hopefully that will incentivize people to use that snapshot initially, and then we'll have more snapshots going forward. So but we want, and that will be anyone who has actually interacted. It'll capture the values of the account values of anyone who's actually interacted. So if you're just on there and you haven't touched it, we don't know if you've opted in or not. And we have governance that's kind of extensive, and we need everyone to opt in. So you opt in by your first action, right? The contract comes up. We also have on EOS, it's going to be the same thing. It's just a different set of contracts. So you opt in. So if you vote, if you transfer money in or out, if you stake or unstake, if you do any of these things, you create a new account, right, from your main account. Any sort of transaction, get on Telos Dice, which I assume is going to be there. Anything like that means you're in. You will be captured on at block 6 million. However many tokens you have, that's going to be captured. That's going to be part of this Telos original snapshot, so that everyone can join the party, right? And new people now have a chance to be an early adopter on Telos and get those airdrops and participate in the newness of it, and not just perpetuating the old guard. So if you're interested, get in there, stack up some, fill your bag around block, 5,999,000, and you may be really happy for years to come. Who knows?
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like you thought it out. That's for sure. I guess I wanted to ask a question about, so we're getting ready for the launch. Everything is heating up. People are coming to you talking about dApps. You've provided some incentives for people to build on Telos, as we've kind of talked about. You've also provided some incentives for people to kind of content creators and people to engage with Telos and talk about Telos in the community as well. Maybe we'll start with
the community reward pool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So this has been going on for a while. It's going to go on right up to launch. And the community reward pool is, we said, hey, let's put together a pool of 1 million Telos, and cap any single person, any single contributor at 10,000 Telos, which is a lot to get for texting, right? for tweets and video production, right? And let's set up some basic rules for how people do that. But keep them really simple. And those are actually all on our site at telosfoundation.io/rewards. And if you go there, it shows you a whole table, and maybe you'll pull it up. I don't know. It shows you what's happening, what you can, all the things you can get it for tweeting. You get, if more people like your tweets, you get more. You can get it for Facebook posts. You can get it for managing a community, like on Telegram or Reddit. You can get it for videos, and in fact, anything that's a legitimate, bona fide tutorial, right? That's showing somebody how to use something, gets double. So if you go out and create a wallet tutorial, that's 2 minutes long but gets 100 views, you're gonna get, you're gonna get a nice little chunk for the hour it took you to pull that together. So we want people to talk about it. There's no way that we can reach into every community that the users can. There's no way we can go out into we're trying. We have Telegram groups in English, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Italian, Russian, I think a couple more, and our documents are in close to 11 languages now. But there's only so much. But that's like there, sitting there. That's not the same as being out interacting. And the only way to do that really is to get the people behind it. So we wanted to give them a reason, and not just incentivize them. Incentives work great, but also it's additionally, it's just a way for people another way for people who weren't on the snapshot or whatever with EOS to say, hey, I really like what you guys are doing in Telos. I want to be a part of it. What can I do? And how can I get some now? And since you can't buy any before, because again, we're protecting everyone in the Telos system from this being called a security by never selling anything and figuring out how to do everything with no money right now. And which is tough, and not selling and not creating any before the chain launches, right? So no one can call this a security, which is probably the only one in 2018 that's true of, right? I think this is the only one in 2018 of any size that can claim that, and but it's a great protection for everybody down the line. And so, but since we couldn't create any beforehand, this is our way of giving people a chance to take part and show their excitement and just be part of Telos and be part of the launch of what we think is going to be one of the world's greatest blockchains.
When we're kind of like a year into the future, right? We're going into the future right now. I don't know why, but we're going to do it. So
every second.
Yeah, we're doing it. Oh, every second, that's true too. But 1 year from now, what does Telos look like if you've won?
My vision, what I would like to see is I would like to see it up and running. I would like to see, 100, whatever the block number, like a lot of blocks, a lot of transactions. I would like to see people having taken advantage of the RAM grants and the good grant that is a resource grant, basically free resources for the first year for innovative dApps, and see that there's a community of users and dApp developers, which is partially by the small price, the lower price, partially by the removal of roadblocks for people for both dApp developers with those types of grant programs, right, that make it basically free for them to onboard or to deploy on Telos, and also with users, because we're guaranteeing that we're having initiatives. The first 1 million new accounts will be free to create, with basic common sense protections against abuse. But we're gonna make it so that users get on for free, dApps can get on essentially for free, and that's going to probably be a very different user base. I would love to see it be a user base that is new people coming to crypto altogether. Certainly people coming from certainly people coming from EOS. I think we'll have a really a nice circular Venn diagram, right? A lot of overlap there, but also people coming in from Ethereum. But I would love to see people coming in from, not even in crypto, like Telos is their first interaction with crypto, because it is as fast as they expect computers to be, right? You push a button and it's confirmed, because it's free to get on. You don't even have to, it's free and easy to create an account. There's no gas prices. There's a lot of cool, crazy dApps, right? Some things are ridiculous and some things are awesome, and just there's a whole bunch because we removed, because we took maybe 5 to 10 million Telos worth of resources and staked them and basically gave them to new dApps so that they can come on for free. And so as a result, it's like a playground of new stuff. I mean, of course, games, but also business things. And developers who decide that rather than putting a lot of a lot of resources into, or a lot of their funds into going and buying resources like RAM and tokens to stake on EOS. Instead, they come in and they just take our on-ramp offer, and they spend those funds instead on developers. And so they have more developers, maybe advertising for their things so they can get people to know about it, and they have and maybe just surviving a little longer until people can get on board, right? And as a result, I think 1 year from now, there's going to be a very rich tapestry of dApps and users who are exciting and who don't necessarily represent the same user groups as you'd see on EOS. That's my hope.
Absolutely. It's coming along. It's coming up quick, and as always, it's a pleasure to catch up with you and just kind of find out what's going on. Looking forward to doing this again in maybe a couple more months, and have a landscape of dApps and a bunch of things going on. But I wanted to ask you, before I let you go and give you some time to go set up for the launch, do you have any kind of final message to people who might be following the Telos journey at this point?
Wow, that's a great question. I just want people to understand what we're trying to do. I think we're trying to make an awesome network that works in all its pieces, and we're trying to make that same awesome network be meaningful for them. Let them have a say, even if there's somebody who couldn't afford to buy millions of EOS. The average token holder has 100. I want that average token holder to have a meaningful vote, and I want them to be inspired and excited and tell everybody about this and how easy it is to use, and how it really spreads the goals of EOSIO. And that's what I'm excited. That's what I would want people to know. Understand that we're trying to do this to make this accessible for you and workable for you. And you, in this case, doesn't have to be somebody who knows anything about a crypto at this moment in time. You can be, somebody who comes new into crypto, or you can be somebody who's, in Kenya and not in the city, but barely have access to the internet and still use blockchain, cutting edge blockchain to make your life better. That's the thing I want. I want it to be like really broad spread user base around the world, user groups that we don't even immediately think of as using blockchain. I want them on board, and so I welcome everybody to take a look at it and sort of share this vision moving forward.
100%. Douglas, I'm going to post all the links of all the various programs that we talked about, the Good Block grant, as well as everything else we chatted about below. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys launch. And thanks so much again for taking the time and just sitting down and giving me an update. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate it. Always great talking to you. Super support what you're doing. You have one of my very favorite video series period. Great interviews. You ask great questions. Thanks for having me. I'll come back anytime.
Sounds good. I'll look forward to it. We'll see you soon.